right, we are recording. I'm hitting the theme song.
I am super duper cereal.
All right. Theme song is over. And you can't hear it, so I have to tell you that. So how you been, dude?
I've been good. I've been good. How have you been?
I'm good. I'm good, man. Just been doing a ton of podcast stuff. It's a lot of
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
All the editing and getting it posted, and I got a good hosting company now, and I'm on all the major
Yeah.
things. So, oh, I gotta transition this. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Yes, I'm on all the major platforms now, which is really cool. I'm getting downloads all over the place. So
Yeah, it's
I've
sweet.
said it before and I'll say it again. If anybody who's listening doesn't know me personally, please reach out. I want to meet you and find out your feedback. And Dylan and I did a sort of podcast project, probably about a year ago now or something?
Something like that. It was probably, yeah, I think it was like in June, wasn't it?
Okay.
It
Okay.
was like 8 months.
Yeah, call it 8 months, sure.
Yeah.
We did a lot of stuff about tech, sciencey kind of things, and
Yeah.
mostly. And it was cool. It was good. Maybe we'll release it one day. We didn't have a
Yeah.
name or anything. But
Perpetually unnamed podcast.
perpetually unnamed. Oh my god. I keep getting this encoding overload on and then it goes away. I keep getting this encoding overload on my computer cuz my graphics card is like, almost non-existent. And
You said you're on a Surface, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I actually realized I have an overlay on OBS too that says it has our names in the corners, but I didn't change it to have your name, so it says Joe.
Oh, cool. I guess I'm Joe now.
I guess, yeah. I mean, you don't look anything like him, so it'll be obvious. But so I guess it's worth mentioning that you and I previously did a podcast on virtual reality
Yeah. Yeah.
and talked a whole lot about it, and we'll probably end up recapping a bunch of it. But the reason we're sitting down today is because you got your hands on a VR headset, right?
Yeah. Yep. So basically, I guess my initial thoughts of it were like, I
Well,
guess
what
we
were
were
your
talking.
thoughts? What were your thoughts before you got it?
Yeah, yeah. So
Let's.
that's what I was thinking. So when we were talking last time, I guess my thoughts were it seemed really gimmicky. Like I didn't know if it would really go anywhere. I didn't know if it was really the future of anything. Didn't know how popular it would really become. Um, and so recently, when I came into it again, I kind of heard mostly what kind of biased me, like, and swung me into getting it this time around was there was a game that I was playing that people had mentioned supported it decently well.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, well, this kind of game I could see working decently. Like maybe I professionally, I'm in the tech space a whole lot. It's a
Yeah.
passion of mine. I'm in the gaming space. So like it's something that kind of aligns with a lot of the stuff that I do. And I was like, well, maybe I should pick it up. This is a game that I totally play in it. And so maybe I'll get my feet wet in it and see what the space is really like. So I picked up a Samsung Odyssey, which is kind of a part of this. The existing VR space was kind of dominated by things like the PlayStation VR, things like Oculus Rift, and the HTC Vive, which are kind of the three big players in the space.
Yeah, like when you ask somebody what VR, they'll say like, "Oh, is that the the Vi or the Oculus?" Those are kind of the
Yeah.
big names. Yeah.
Yeah, so those were the big name ones, and it turns out that Microsoft kind of got involved a little bit, and we're like, well, there's a million of these different things kind of popping up. Let's have like a unified way of doing it. So they came out with what they call Windows Mixed Reality or Microsoft Mixed Reality, depends on where and when you look at the name from. But
Mhm.
that's basically us trying to make the software more standard, so it's easier for game developers to support multiple different sets. So the one that I picked up was a Samsung one. The basically what convinced me to get it were like the specs were kind of higher than the Oculus Rift, higher than the Vive, but not as expensive as some of the higher end ones and stuff like that. So I
Why is
picked
that,
that
you
up.
think?
So I mean, I think there's
Because
a
you
bunch
would
of
think
different.
that more expensive usually would be obviously you and
Sure.
I know that that's not always the case. But what do you think was the case specifically
Sure.
there?
So I think part of why Oculus is more expensive to begin with was that they were a small company trying to get a startup going and everything, and they were initially pretty expensive. They've come down in price. I think when I was looking, it was 400 for the Oculus Rift, and the HTC Vive was 600, and so was 500. It was right down the middle.
Okay.
I think HTC's is more expensive because when it was released, this was also a few years ago. It's like a somewhat older model at this point, and I think it's more expensive because at the time that was like kind of ballpark for like these sorts of things, and they were hitting a good price point. I think now that VR has become more popular, there's more demand for it. There's more models coming out, so the price can drop a little bit.
Okay.
And I think their next model that comes out, maybe that'll change the way that they price for like specs versus price sort of discrepancy. But also, the one that I picked up was the Samsung one, and Samsung does displays and all these sorts of things.
Okay.
A whole lot, and they probably have more of the parts ready to go and stuff like that. And they're doing
Yeah,
more
that makes sense. Okay.
I think that's part of it. I think it's also Samsung needs a way to kind of sell it, right? And if they can sell it as a cheaper alternative, then that gets them.
Yeah, they can probably eat a little bit of the cost more
Yeah,
readily than some of these
yeah.
other companies
Yeah.
because they have their hands in fucking washing machines and TVs
Yeah,
and
everything.
God
But
knows
they
what
also
else,
they
yeah.
sell displays to everybody, and I think the major expensive component of a VR headset is the display. So I
Yeah,
think
that makes
they do
sense.
that in house, they probably can get it cheaper too, and everything. But
Yeah.
and I mean, specs wise, it's only slightly ahead of the others. It's not like it's huge leaps and bounds ahead or anything, so it's
Mhm.
not really surprising. But yeah, it was a decent bump. So that was
Okay.
kind of my sway into it. But yeah, so I guess my kind of take on it now is that VR, I think there's a lot of stuff in the space going on, and I think there's a lot more than I thought initially, but it still seems like it's a bit of a gimmicky space, and it's definitely a bit of a cash grab at this point.
Yeah.
There's I was noticing a lot of the games for it. It's like you get a pretty simple game that's kind of like what you would expect to pay on like an app store for a mobile game for like a
Right.
few bucks, and they're like $20 games here.
Hmm.
So it's like, I think part of that kind of comes back to the supply and demand sort of thing. Like there's not as many people playing VR games. It's not any easier to make it. It's actually harder. So like
Right,
with
right.
less people buying it, you got to sell it for a higher price point. But it definitely seems like it's a lot of like gimmicky sorts of stuff still. They're kind of figuring out what the spaces are here and there, and like what's a good idea, what people want, what people don't want. But I think there are like a few gems in the space that really like hammer home what we should be doing, and there were a couple things that I could see more so where this would actually have a hold in this.
And now I just briefly read. I didn't want to get into the conversation. I apologize for that at the time. But you started telling
Yeah.
me some of your opinions on it, and you said you
Yeah.
used it. You saw a thing where people had like an avatar in like a shared VR space, like to have like
Yeah.
meetings and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I guess there's kind of there's two takes on it that are like the kind of advantages that I see happening. One being the thing that you're mentioning. I think there's this game called aside from all of the kind of cash grabs, there's a few games that like manage to do free things, and I'm like, I don't know how they're doing this. Like one of them is by Valve that did like a bunch of free games all in one
Mhm.
bundle, and it was really interesting. It's Valve, and they have a ton of money because they run if for those who don't know, it's they run Steam, which is a huge gaming platform. So
Mhm.
they have a ton of money to throw around. They can throw things out for free like this. They kind of
Yeah, I saw. I see a lot of criticism. Just to sidetrack real quick, I'm on Reddit a lot, and anytime anything comes up about Valve, everyone's just freaking out because they don't make games anymore, and they said Valve realized, why make games when we can just make money instead? And, that's the whole like
pretty much.
that's why Half-Life 3 never happened, and
Yeah,
blah,
I mean,
blah.
Valve could be a whole topic of its own, but they
Sure,
kind of
sure.
slowed down in their game production and ramped up on their kind of gaming as a service sort of stuff.
right. I guess somebody
got
had to
some-
do it, so
Yeah. So, I mean, to speak more to VR specifically, one of the interesting things that Valve did as well was kind of seeing the same thing that Microsoft did, where Microsoft was like, there's a whole space of like people doing a million different things here. Valve kind of did a similar sort of thing from the other end, where they're like, because they run Steam is a hosting service for a ton of other games. So you can basically use it to download other games. And what Valve did here is they made what they call Steam VR, which is kind of a platform that developers can write their games to, kind of integrates with all of the Steam ecosystem and platform, and they kind of made like a version of Steam that runs in VR, so you can like launch your other games and everything. But they also made it so that
That's really smart.
yeah. So
So you don't even have to go into the real world to load your games up.
right, which is a thing of its own. But they basically they made it so both all the Microsoft stuff from the hardware, all the Microsoft mixed reality hardware, the Oculus Rift, and the HTC Vive can all use what's called Steam VR, and it kind of knows how to plug into each of the three and run any of the games that support it in any of them. So it kind of means anyone, and I don't know like all the specifics of it, obviously, but they've managed to take a lot of the games that are kind of specific to the HTC Vive and have made it available to the other platforms as well, which has kind of made the space grow even more and more.
Now let me ask you a question, because I haven't played around with VR for more than like a couple minutes at a friend's house, and
Sure.
I have the Google Pixel, and that has the Daydream, thing on it. I don't really know much about it. I haven't played with
Sure.
it because I don't have a headset.
Sure.
But I get the impression that there are obviously there are different VR systems that have different amounts of input features.
Mhm.
Like some of them are just like if I want Netflix VR, which is a thing, I can just that just has that would just need like a D-pad and a select and a back or something.
Sure.
Like there are
Sure.
some of them that have the PlayStation VR has like 2 controllers and a bunch of buttons, and like there's a whole lot going on. But I'll go to I was in Walmart the other day, and they had clearance VR headsets for $1. It's a thing you just put your you
Stick
put your phone into. Yeah. But it had no buttons or anything like that, and I'm like,
Sure.
why would this even be useful to anyone? Because I was almost like, oh, for $1, I guess I'll just get it just to play around. But there's no way to have any input for it or anything. So
Sure.
what's the point even?
So
So the reason I'm asking that is because you're saying that there's all these games that were designed for a specific system, and Valve made them available
Sure.
to other systems, meaning that my assumption is that there might be some compatibility issues because they have different amounts of input and stuff.
So, this gets into like a kind of debate about, well, what is VR, quote unquote.
Okay.
So to start off, I think probably the dollar sorts of things that you're seeing were what Google initially launched as Google Cardboard, which was basically like
It's just
kind of some
a thing that holds it in front of your eyes and blocks the light out,
which is
basically.
it's like a simpler version of Daydream, if it sounds like you're familiar with, but it's
Mm-hmm.
basically like you slot the phone, like you slot your smartphone into it, and then it knows how to like use the smartphone to make it look 3D, but there's no extra input. And so from there, like, is
Like
that
it just
VR?
uses the accelerometer and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, it
Yeah,
depends
so
on what you're doing. If you're just watching a video, you know what I
Right.
mean? If you're watching it as a video experience, then sure. But
Right,
you
you
can't
just
actually
press play
interact
and
with it
it's
other
like
than look
three-
around. Like if it's
Yeah.
a 360-degree video kind of thing, you looking around is the only kind of input that you're having.
Right.
Versus obviously you can't play any kind of game with that because you don't,
Yeah. Yeah. So
Unless-
in the early games, there were some games that were like based on just turn your head towards the thing and it shoots it sorts of stuff. So it was like really
Okay.
simplistic.
Right,
Like, I don't know that anyone would really call that like a VR game anymore these days.
Sure.
But like, so like the first foray into it was basically just mount something to your face. You can't see the real world anymore, and it's 3D, and then call that VR, quote unquote. There are a few uses. I have one of those. The only thing I really ever used it for was there's with Google Cardboard, there's like a camera app you can get for your phone that lets you like basically take what seems like a panorama picture, but then when you load it in a VR headset, it actually has recorded all the like 3D depth information, so it kind of gives you like a 3D 360-degree view.
That's
And
neat.
so like when I was like hiking and stuff, I'm like, oh, look at this cool vista I just got to like take a panorama of it, and then you load it up in this VR.
And you can look
headset.
around and like lean your head and stuff, and that's really
yeah.
neat.
And so it's like simplistic, but like it serves it serves a purpose to an extent.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it
Um,
could even be argued that like virtual reality isn't even close to existing yet. If you want to go down
Sure,
that
yeah,
road, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Because
Yeah.
until there's haptic feedback and
like
for
I
the
move
full
my
body.
big toe and it knows.
and
right?
no,
Like,
yeah, exactly, yeah, and like you breathe heavily and like you get out of breath as your character does and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like that's, I mean, we're light years from stuff
right,
like that.
exactly. So there's like all different levels of what is virtual reality. So,
Sure.
I think the kind of next step into it is like the Daydream sort of stuff where you have the phone mounted and then you have some sort of input controls.
Mm-hmm.
the difference with what I think I would consider VR and what Steam and what Valve is considering Steam VR is they do require that you do have they require the headset, and then they have like a standard for what the controller must support for it to be a VR controller.
Okay.
So some of the games they'll allow, like if the game supports gamepad input anyway, you can use a VR headset and you can use a gamepad and you can play it. And then they
Just
have
like any
another
Bluetooth
standard.
or whatever, anything you can manage
Yeah,
to
like
hook up.
you can play. Usually, it's like a PS4 controller, an Xbox 360 or Xbox One controller you plug
Okay.
in your or whatever. And then you have
Yeah.
like a way to do input, and you have the 3D headset.
Right.
And so
right.
this gets into another. This is like kind of where the next line gets drawn, where there's like seated VR, which is like you sit still, you can turn your head and look around, and you're like moving your character using the gamepad and the
Right.
controller.
Or you're on
Right.
a track, you know.
Or or those sorts of things. And then like the next layer is like what they call I don't remember if it's like some people call it standing, some people call it room VR, but it's like where you set up a like 12 by 12 foot box in your house, and you like have a free open area where you can walk around
Right.
tethered to your computer. And so those kind of get into different types of things. The initial thing that I bought VR for was basically a game that you use the gamepad for anyway. So it was like basically a seated VR sort of experience. And that's what I first got into. And it's interesting, but a lot of those games aren't really designed for VR, and the interaction's a little weird. And that was like what my initial impression of VR was. Like before I bought it, like that was kind of like where I thought it was kind of going. And I think that is interesting, but it's not the best that VR has to offer. And I think if you get the wireless controllers that are made for VR, and they can like actually, they're more like Wiimotes that have extra buttons on them and stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
any of the PlayStation stuff, this is basically what they do.
Right.
And those controllers can be tracked very well, and then it can tell where your hands are in space, and you have a few buttons of input.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then you like
'cause-
walk around the room, and it's a totally, it's a
wow.
very different thing.
That's really cool.
So I guess also one thing that did occur to me is another reason why the Samsung one is cheaper is that the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift both have this setup where you put the headset on, but you leave like a couple of like signal beacon sorts of things set up by your computer. And those basically, I'm not entirely sure exactly what they're tracking, but I know that they do track the hand pieces, the controllers that you hold.
Okay.
And so then even if you like walk around the room, those things from the front of the room are basically tracking where you are and where the controllers are. The way that the Windows kind of approach is kind of changing things is they, instead of doing it that way, they mount cameras to the front of the headset, and they track the controllers from your point of view.
Interesting.
Which means you have less hardware to deal with. It also makes it a lot easier to set up because you basically like, instead of setting these things up around your room, all you have to do is plug the headset into the computer and like point it at the screen, and then like walk around the room to know where the boundaries are, and like you're good to go. Instead of like setting up a couple different towers, marking where those are in space, and then kind of trimming those around.
Right.
The one disadvantage so there's less hardware to deal with. It's a little bit easier to set up. The one problem is that like for right now the cameras face forward, so if you like put your arm behind you, the controllers aren't
just
seen
disappears.
anymore.
Yeah.
Well, so they do, because they still have accelerometer, they can like track them to an extent, but it gets less accurate. So like sometimes it'll lose track of it and like it disappears altogether. Sometimes like if you do like a quick motion behind you and come back forward, it's still there. But yeah.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of differences there. But so I guess to kind of loop back around to where you were saying, like was talking about a kind of virtual meeting space sort of thing, and people. So that was like a standing VR experience, and so there was this game called I think it's called Rec Room, which is like Recreation Room or whatever, and it's fairly simple. It has like a few different like mini game sorts of things. So it has like a version where there's like one thing where you go to like the lobby and you're kind of just in like this like general meeting space sort of thing with other people.
Okay.
And then there's like things like paintball, and there's things like laser tag and things like soccer and stuff like that. And so the way that these work is that you basically in these you have like the two handheld controllers, and it can like kind of track your hands in space, and it can also track your head with like all the head mounted stuff. And so these kind of give you an avatar that you can kind of like customize, make it look the way you want, sort of thing.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. But they also have, as you walk around the room, it maps your avatar in space as well. And then they do live, like they have stuff with like microphones and stuff too, so you can like live chat with people.
Right.
So you can like walk up to people and talk to them.
Whoa.
And then they also, there's stuff like this in like VR chat and stuff like that, which are kind of a different way of doing it. But these, because you actually are holding physical controllers in your hands.
Yeah.
They also map where your hands are in space,
Right.
which to me like totally crossed a boundary. And I don't know if this is going to be easy to explain to someone that like hasn't experienced it, but like for one example is like there's like in the laser tag game, you're running around, you're like carrying the gun, and you can see the person's like gun like actually move around. And so
Yeah.
like instead of like a shooter where like the person is like in a very rigid stance and like runs forward really rigidly and
Right.
like turns, shoots, turns,
Right,
shoots.
right.
Instead, like the person's head is doing this thing and like their hands are like going.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a very different. It feels much more natural. And then they do
Interesting.
this thing where in the laser tag one, where if one of your teammates, it's like a team base, it's like 4-on-4 or whatever. If one of your teammates gets tagged out, if you walk up and like high five each other, then it like tags them back in.
Huh.
And like this like totally crossed the line for me. It was like, whoa, what the hell? I can tell that like I'm interacting with a person when I like put up my hand and like see them like hit it. It was just like a very different thing.
And
then
does it
it's,
like vibrate real quick or something when you do it or something?
I don't think they have any rumble or anything, but it's like
Oh,
because
okay.
you can see the person like turn and look at you and like put their hands up and they're like help, and then
Oh
you
my
like
God.
run over to them and you're like this, like
Whoa.
it's a very different sort of thing.
Interesting, man.
And so then there's things like when when I'd like go fight a guy and like I'd like would kill each other or something, would be sitting there like stuck waiting for someone to like hang out, and we could like chat with each other, be like, oh hey man, like good shot, or like oh we keep running and stuff. And it's like you can kind of see their like body language transfers a lot, and you can like see by like gesturing quickly, you can kind of see bits of what they're doing, and it just makes it much more human to human interaction instead of like human.
Well, that's interesting too, because you know, like I've been playing just for example, I've been playing Star Wars Battlefront 2
Yeah.
lately, and we don't have to go into the whole controversy around that game.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I didn't buy it. I'm just using a shared account with my cousin, so don't judge me. I didn't give EA my money.
I couldn't do it. I was like, I really want to play a Star Wars game, but I don't know that
It's
it
a
can
fun
support.
it's a fun game, man. I
Yeah.
really enjoy it. But you know, I'll be on a squad. I'll spawn with like, you know, 7 other people, and I can't fucking talk to them unless we're friends on Xbox and we join up a party.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
we're even right now, the way things are is so disconnected from what you're talking about. Like, why
Yeah.
can't I talk to them? Forget about the seeing them move their gun around in real time and stuff like that.
Right,
I
yeah.
can't even talk to them with their character.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is I understand that it probably would be a lot more data, because I found out recently that apparently, like, playing a game on the internet with other people, there's not as much data transfer as I thought there would be. Like,
No,
it's really
like
just bits.
very
Yeah, it's
small.
like, because you already have all the textures and models and stuff on your
Right, literally
system.
all your moves.
It's literally just the location of where things are at a certain
You're
point in time.
translating like 3 numbers that mean where they are in space, 3 numbers that mean which direction they're pointing, and
Yeah.
like if they're shooting, if they're doing this thing, or if they're doing that thing. So it's like you do have to send it at a sample rate that's pretty high. So you're sending that probably 60 times a second, like 30 to 60 times a second. But
Wow.
like that's like a few KB a second.
Right.
For like any reasonable amount of audio or video, like any
This
reasonable
would be
amount of
way more
audio
than that,
is
yeah.
like 128 or higher. right?
Exactly. That's
And
exactly what I was
so
about to
it's-
say. Yeah, I understand that it would be a large, you know, big increase, but
Yeah.
you know, but with that being said, like if I was in a Xbox party with those 7 people, there would be no
Yeah.
issue, you know.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna, you know, the
Well, they're kind
alternative.
of keeping you down by like making you right. Like they're adding like a friction to it, so people aren't using it, so they don't have to support.
Well,
really-
I think the difference would be that the audio would have to be going through the servers of the game
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
what is it, Microsoft server, or was it is
Well,
it
I mean-
P2P if you're doing?
I mean, Microsoft could set it up so that the Xbox server sorts
Would
of
handle
stuff
it.
just pipes
Yeah.
audio a different way, but
Yeah.
that's a technical sorts of thing.
Right.
But-
Well, I can dream.
Yeah, no, I know, but like,
But it's just so crazy that it's like, you
there's a
know, at
lot
the
of
same
controversy
time,
about-
both of these things are happening, you know?
Yeah, but it's a very, I mean, there's a lot of controversy around this, and I kind of, this is like one other thing that I wanted to bring up is that like, there's a lot of online games where like, where audio is a first party thing, and there's a lot of people afraid that like that's going to turn into people like shit talking each other a lot, like being mean,
Oh
harassment, all
no.
right?
Oh, you
Sure,
poor
sure.
babies.
Sure, but like, what I've noticed is that like in text it's really bad. In voice, it's like it happens. It's not the worst thing. But like when I was playing a bunch of these, like where you actually see the people moving around and everything, it's like so much lower than anywhere else. And I'm like, is this actually because it's worse,
Obviously,
or is
dude.
it just
Yes.
like
Yes,
the text
man. Hold on.
is? I don't know.
Now, yes, absolutely yes, because
Sure, no, yeah,
this is like the third conversation I've had about this week, but it's like when you are talking to when you're texting somebody,
yeah,
that's almost none, like percentage wise, of what it actually takes to effectively communicate with someone. Like that,
right,
it's boiled down is not even the right way to put it. It's like
right,
1% of a percent of what you actually get when you are speaking face to face with someone. And
yeah,
what you're talking about, this VR thing, it brings back maybe some sort of rudimentary eye contact. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Seeing the person physically in front of you, which activates certain things in your
yeah,
lizard brain. You know,
sure,
you get all the inflection. You know what I mean? You have context. You have rudimentary body language. You know what I mean? So it's like you're getting all these things back that are what keep people from that empathy turning off. You know
yeah,
what I
right,
mean?
right,
There's a
right.
lack of empathy when you're just typing in,
Into a
all the
box of
all things
letters
that I
that
don't
are
even want to repeat that
right,
people say on on gaming stuff. But it's
yeah,
like, yeah, that if you actually have to face the person, even if it's not real, there's still part of your brain that's like, they're in front of me. I don't have the
yeah,
balls to say this crazy shit while
right,
they're in front of
right,
me. You know. So I think it is. I think it is that
yeah,
simple. I think it is because
yeah,
they're right there. You know.
sure,
And
right.
I think that's a good thing that we're approaching that, because maybe maybe there is hope, because
Yeah,
the way that things have been for the last decade, with the when texting got like real popular and shit, it's like it's fucking I feel like it's fucking people all up,
yeah,
and
yeah,
people don't know how to handle it. It's like I hear people say, I don't know, the whole like cyberbullying thing, dude. It's such a strange phenomenon, because like, okay, well, just get off Facebook.
yeah,
Just don't fucking go on there.
yeah.
Find a different way to get your gratification, and then people can't climb inside your soul the way that they apparently are. Like,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
a lot of the things is like it's hard to kind of take a stance on it when it is like you are opting into it, right? It's not like someone's
Yeah.
chasing you around doing it. It is something that you are
Right, when
acting.
it, like if it's at school and you have to be there, and that's because it's the
Right.
only school
Yeah.
in your area, and they're in your grade, and
Yeah.
they're in your class, and they fucking hate you, and they pick on you, and nobody believes you, or blah blah blah, whatever. That's
Yeah.
very real, and I get that, and I have all the sympathy in the world for people who are bullied like in that kind of context. But
Yeah.
if it's on your fucking computer, dude, like for real, like there's really nothing you can do about that. And
Yeah.
the problem is that like people get so wrapped up in their what they think their identity is. It's on some website where they're part of the community, and then they get bullied on there, and they have a bunch of friends on that website, so they can't just leave it. Blah blah blah. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't know. It's such weird. We're in such a weird period with this whole internet
Yeah.
thing, and we don't know how to handle it yet. We don't know how to handle any of it. So it's promising that VR is like kind of on the horizon. That
Yeah.
if maybe while we're still alive, VR can maybe be some sort of
Yeah.
at least beginning of a remedy to all this crazy.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of space for these sorts of like I can kind of see now how like in a meeting sort of thing where you're like trying to interact with people like on a professional level, like does
Sure.
this make more sense? Does it replace something like Skype or whatever where you
Like
can
what we're
be
doing,
face
yeah.
to face? I don't know, like maybe with certain things, maybe not, but I definitely see that there is some potential to, but it definitely still has its flaws. It's still definitely like in its infancy, and
Sure.
we have to see where it goes. But
I mean, I would say maybe for purposes of like, it's like I wonder. It's even hard to do thought experiments without actually doing the thing. But
yeah,
you know, being somebody who like worked in a setting that I had to communicate with people on the computer like constantly, I think it would have helped a lot to be able to have that kind of those communication advantages that we were talking about a minute ago, with being able
yeah,
to see each other's faces and stuff like that. Whereas obviously it'd be way down the road, but they're just sending me an email and I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like the instructions were very clear. Well, you know what I mean? And then I start
Yeah.
getting, resentful because they
Yeah.
didn't listen to my instructions, whereas I wouldn't even get that upset if they were
Yeah.
literally coming to me in like a VR space and they're like, "Hey, I don't know what's going on." I'm like, "Hey, no, it's cool." You know what I mean? I would be more chill
Yeah.
about it
Yeah.
because I get, you get disconnected on both ends. There's a lack
Yeah.
of communication, therefore there's a lack of understanding, but my anger, my frustration can get flared up a little easier because it's harder for me. I'm talking to 55 different people in this exact
Yeah.
same context,
Yeah.
and they're all just email addresses,
Yeah.
with stupid
I think it's
fucking
interesting.
questions.
Like, we'll see. I think like the Skype like video chat sorts of things definitely add something else to the picture that like VR doesn't have. Like, you still get facial expressions and stuff like that you can't read, and like there's more to like doing this than just like two hands moving around. So
Sure,
it's like
sure.
I think at some point they'll probably merge a little bit better, and I don't think that like anyone's gonna hop on VR right now unless there's something very like they need to share a physical space for something. And I can't even really think of a good example unless you're like, I don't know, like machining something and you need to like point to the different parts of the machine or whatever. Like,
Right. It's like the
uh,
whole, like, like the screen sharing thing is super helpful if you're trying to like
yeah,
help somebody with their computer,
yeah,
but it's like, I mean, maybe for something like maybe some medical thing or
yeah.
something,
Or you're
or
talking
like
like any sort of
or
like
like a VR,
mechanic that's
or
like
think
that.
about like how cool like a shared VR space would be for like a yoga class.
Sure, that
You
gets into
know,
other things. Yeah, yeah.
that would be
I think
cool.
I think like mechanic sorts of stuff would be interesting. Like if you could like
Yeah,
pull up a fake car and be like, oh, this part here, like can I
sure.
make sure that this does. And so like I think there's definitely spaces where it could be useful, but it's still
Like for
too.
taking online classes and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be neat. Yeah, that'd be
But you
yeah.
could even like have someone do it. Like you could test someone by having the like giving them a fake car,
Oh,
tell them
right. Yeah,
fix
yeah.
it, like go figure it out, and they could go grab the parts and do whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, there are like some things where I'm like this could be really useful, but it still feels like a little like niche like
Yeah.
applications for
Yeah,
those for
because
like professional sorts of thing.
yeah, I guess even the meeting thing, I feel like personally, I feel like the kind of thing you and I are doing is sufficient. I don't need to
Yeah,
see
yeah,
because all the things we're talking about, like I
yeah.
can
We can
gesticulate
do
very
if we need to.
effectively without any extra hardware,
Right, right.
and with even just basic broadband is plenty for what we're doing.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah. And so I guess the other end of things, like getting back into like entertainment sorts of stuff,
Sure.
there's definitely like some simple like takes on some simple games that I think have been done really well. Like there was one of the so Valve basically made this like what they call the lab, and there's a bunch of different like mini games that they let you play, and some of them are fairly interesting. And like one of the more interesting ones was kind of like it kind of reminded me of kind of like an asteroid sort of game where instead of playing on a flat plane though, you're playing in 3D. So you like pick up the ship, and then there's like guys that spawn in and like chase at you, and you have to kind of like fly the ship around by hand. And I'm like, well,
Oh,
this is a really interesting space because like flying things in 3D kind of works in like with like a controller or whatever, but like this kind of lets you see the whole perspective and do like very fine manipulations and stuff, which was like really
that's
interesting.
really neat. What a cool idea.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's
Like
like you
Star
kind of like
Fox, like playing
yeah, it's
like
kind
Star
of like
Fox
Star
64
Fox
like
if
that.
you're
Yeah.
like playing from like a third person.
Right,
you're, like,
right.
and
I
pulling
think
from
Star
it.
Fox was a third person, wasn't it? Star Fox 64.
I think so. I didn't play much of it. I played it like at a couple friends'
Yeah,
houses and stuff, so my memory isn't
that was one of
totally.
my
But
favorite
it's
games.
like you get fine motor control, and there's like a lot of people, and you kind of can like squeeze yourself through things.
That's
Kind of
really
like I don't know if
neat.
like if you've played like Snake sort of games before,
Yeah.
you have to kind of like snake
Mhm.
through certain things. It's kind of like that where there's like a lot of bullets coming at you. You have to kind of like
Yeah,
weave
yeah,
your way,
yeah. Right, right, right.
which is like kind of cool. It's kind of like a cool take on things.
What was that crazy that crazy Xbox 360 game that was out like 8 or 9 years ago? It was like Geometry Wars. Was that what it was
Yeah,
called?
yeah, yeah.
Where you
It
had to
was
like
kind of
really fucking. It was 2D, but you had to like really make your way through like around the shot. Like you couldn't get hit at
yeah.
all. And
It was kind of like that in 3D, but a little bit simpler, so it's not like mind-blowingly difficult.
I would try it, but
Like,
that's not my
yeah,
kind of
it's
game,
really,
man.
yeah.
I like.
It's like cool to like kind of play with.
Yeah.
But the one game that I think like that really blew me away on it like was this game called Lone Echo that was made specifically for the Oculus Rift, but there's this whole like hackery sort of community to get it working on other things too. But basically, the idea is that and it kind of like mixes a lot of the it kind of solves a lot of the different problems by having a very specific like storyline and genre. But
Okay.
basically the idea is that you're a robot on a space station with this woman who's working there alone, and basically you're her robot that's there to like help her out, but you're like a totally like android robot where you have like full arms, legs, and everything. And so
A sex robot?
oh yeah, definitely. That's
Okay.
exactly. And
That's
so that's the
assumed, right?
whole
Yeah.
the whole
That's-
game is like
The whole
just
game
kind
is you just use your robot penis to pleasure
Yes,
this woman. And
exactly. But
I tried.
but so what they do is like now the game is in zero gravity, and so instead of like having to have some weird mechanism to like walk around the room, then when you get to the border, like reset to like go somewhere else, then walk around the room again. Instead, it's like all zero gravity, and you move around by like grabbing the walls and then like pushing yourself off and letting go. And so it's like a
Whoa.
totally different type of game, and it like totally uses virtual reality really well because you're like holding on to a thing, you turn and like look at the wall and like grab that wall and like pull yourself over and like
Whoa.
going and like walk down the wall that way, and you kind of go like hand
Huh.
over hand, and you can like push yourself
I really love games that have a new take on movement.
yeah,
Like what was
it's
that
really
game
good.
that came out fairly recently where you're a snake, and no, the whole game, as far as I know, is all you can do is wrap your snake body around things to travel
Weird.
around, and you have to like, you have to get the game has like kind of a complex physics engine, and you have
Yeah.
to like wrap the right way around stuff to climb,
like,
and like
yeah, interesting.
I love
haven't
stuff
seen-
like that. And
Yeah.
there's another game where you are it's a similar game to another game I played that's called Mount Your Friends, which is a game where you have 4 limbs, and each of them can grab and let go, and that's
Yeah.
all that happens. And you have to like use your momentum to swing and like grab on with one, and then swing and let go with the other, and then grab the other. Like, and all 4 of your limbs can do it. And there's a similar game where you're just in a pot, like you're sitting in like a
Yeah, I
big
played
giant.
that one.
Yeah, what is
and
that? What is that one called? That's
Getting over it or
Getting
something.
over it. Yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only thing that grabs is like you have like a
Your
pickaxe or
hammer.
something, or a
Yeah.
hammer. Yeah, and you can. Yeah, I love games that have a new take
Yeah.
on movement. Oh, speaking
Yeah.
of which, Xbox One, their free game of the month in March is going to be Super Hot. Have you seen this game?
So
I haven't played it, dude. I've wanted to play it for so long, and I
I
just
haven't played Superhot itself, but I played Superhot VR, and so I don't know
Oh,
what the
but that's
difference is, but it's
crazy.
that's like one of my other really favorite games.
Oh,
so
cool, man! I can't
let-
wait to
let-
play it.
So let me finish it. So on Lone, I'll come back to Superhot. On
Yeah,
Lone
sorry.
Echo, there's a lot of things that because you're still like you're still a humanoid form, and like in a lot of games, like you like look down, you can like kind of see your feet. And there's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
or whatever. Like in this game, it feels like it's your actual body because your hands are perfectly mapped, and like when you do
Ooh.
like these sorts of things, it can still pick up on it. So it like follows your arm very fluidly. And so when you're doing this, you can like see your virtual arms doing the same thing, and then your like legs kind of float with you because it's zero gravity or whatever.
That's
But
wild.
a lot of the interactions that they have are done really well. Where like they're like, oh, we need you to scan something. So you bring out your scanner, and when you bring out your scanners, you like hold up your wrist, and there's this little button on your wrist, and you press it, and it like slides out, and you like aim it at something, and you like push a button on it, and then when it scans something, you like pull a thing out of it. And so you're like doing this in real space, like trying to pull something off of your other hand, and it's
Whoa.
really hard to describe, but it feels very natural, and it feels like you actually have something like on your hand that you're like pulling out and everything. And they
That's
create
neat.
a lot of really interesting dynamics where like, oh, now like go put these like cargo boxes back in the slots in the wall because they fell out, and you like pull yourself around the room, grab the box, and then you have to like kind of like swing your way across, get back, and then like slide it in, right? And it's like
That's
a lot
neat.
of the game is just built around this like totally different movement dynamic, and they've done it really, really well. They have like a thing where you have to like press a button on like your helmet, and like you have to like bring the controller to your head, and like their controls are like the controllers basically have like multiple triggers on them, and so the way that they do is that, like when you pull the inner button, it basically makes your other finger stick out, and then the other button like flexes your finger.
Oh,
So like
neat.
normally your hand's like this, and when you push like the button that goes with these fingers, your hand goes like this, and then when you push this button, it goes like this, and you can do like these sorts of things.
Oh, that's
The
cool.
manipulation is done by like actually grabbing the wall because you like. put
Do you
your hand-
remember? Do you remember those toys from way back that it was like a hand, and you pull on like your fingers go into like these little things, and when you pull on them, it pulls on cables that make a hand bend that's just like longer than your regular hand.
No, I've
I had
never
one of
seen it
those,
before.
geez, probably 20 years ago. My cousin
That's
had
pretty
one of
cool.
those and we played around with it.
Yeah,
And it was literally that. It was like a hand. If you took a hand and made a mechanical hand,
yeah,
so the tendons would pull,
yeah,
and they were on springs the other way, so it would rest at open, and
yeah.
you had your fingers going these little loops, and as you pulled the cables, it would pull, and you could do all your
Basically like
fingers
a hand
individually.
extension sort of
I'm
thing.
sure,
But
yeah,
then when you do that, like you feel like you have like that's your hand.
right. You
because
could
it's
easily use
respond-
it to pick stuff up because it
Yeah.
works the same way your hand works.
And it's really like it's hard to describe until you do it. But like in VR, when you have things that are mapped
Right.
to these sorts of things, and you like have to make
It becomes
interactions,
natural very quickly,
it
I
feels so
imagine. Yeah.
natural. And when you like can see your hand moving out in the right place and doing it,
Isn't
it's
it
like,
scary?
it's
Isn't it
so
scary how easily like our brains can be
you get
hacked like
fooled.
that?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just so adaptable that it's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is my world. This is the world now.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like it's not crazy to think that once VR gets to the point where there is a lot of haptic feedback, people are going to get lost in it, dude.
Yeah,
Have
it's
you
really.
seen?
I mean, the thing is, like, there is still some like nausea sort of. Like, I don't usually get nauseous from these sorts of things, and like
Yeah.
I've done a bunch of stuff with like 3D, and it doesn't usually bother me. But like the fact that like moving my head and like keeping track of where
Yeah.
I am in space, and then you like take it off, you're like, whoa, 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 that's not where I thought I was, or like you're moving around the room and you kind of like bump into something, and
Yeah.
you're like, wait, I thought I was on the other side. It's like
Oh my
really,
god,
it's a little bit
that's wild.
disorienting, and it makes it a little bit like. It's definitely tiring. Like I'm someone who can like sit and play video games for like 10 hours, but
Sure.
like these, it's like you get a couple hours in and it's like somewhat mentally exhausting, and like you're actually doing a lot more physical movement. So it's a little physical. Like
Wow.
there was one point where I was playing something. I don't remember what it was. I think it was Lone Echo, where it was like I'm actually physically tired from
Yeah,
like
you're
doing
actually
this
expending
part
your
of the
body.
shit.
That's
I'm
wild.
like, this is weird, but yeah. So super hot, super hot. I don't know exactly how the non VR one works, but the way that the VR one works is that there's basically like there's people that are coming at you. They have like guns.
It's
or
the
knives.
same. Motion
Yeah.
only happens if you're moving.
Yeah, and so like motion only happens when you're moving, but the thing in VR is that turning your head does it too, so you can't even like look around. And so like
I think it's probably the same in the game too, because you
Yeah.
have, obviously multiple controls
yeah,
to move and
but
strafe
like
and
the thing
stuff.
is, so like some guy comes at you with like a knife or a gun, and you like literally have to like reach out and like grab it and then like turn and shoot it. And
That's
so like
wild.
there's a lot of, and so like because it goes slow motion, you can like dodge around bullets and
Right,
stuff. And
right.
I think that's probably one of the things that VR probably does better is that like when someone shoots at you, you see the bullet coming, you can kind of just like do this, and it just
Oh,
like
and
keeps
literally
moving,
turn
you
your
kinda
head and
just,
look
like,
by it.
go out of the way.
Oh, that's
And it's like
wild,
really
man.
nutty, and it's like I don't know.
That's really cool.
And then
I
you
would
kind of-
love to play that.
The other thing is that like when people are coming at you from multiple sides, you can kind of turn and see where one guy is, and like turn and look away, and like keep your hand there ready to grab the thing and like grab it without looking and stuff like that, which is really interesting too.
Huh.
Which is like something that like I didn't realize how easy this would be in VR, but like when you see where something is, it's really easy to like reach out and grab it. And so
Right.
like they like show you where the controllers are in space in some things, and so like in like this Steam like virtual reality sort of like home thing, it shows you like where the controllers are because that's all your like only a real interaction point. What I found interesting is that like I'll put the controllers down, take the headset off or whatever, and then like put the headset back on, be like, oh shit, where did I put the controls? You can like literally look around in VR and see where they are and just like reach out and grab the thing in real space too. And it's like, this shouldn't work so easily. But it
Whoa.
does. And it like hurts your head.
Whoa.
And it's like, that thing's just sitting on the floor. Let me grab it. And it
That's
like
wild.
works. It's like, it's really, it's creepy how well it works. But
Have you? My cat just fell off the ottoman. um, have you seen that new show on Amazon, Electric Dreams?
no.
It's like Amazon's take on Black Mirror.
Yeah.
And the first episode is about this woman who has a stressful life. She's like a cop. It's in the future. And her partner is like, hey, why don't you try this VR thing? You can just live the life of another person, kind of step out of your own shoes for a little while.
Mhm.
So she gives it a try, and she like wakes up in the bed of like this man, and he is like a big CEO and stuff like. The whole point is like she eventually starts to not be sure which one
Which
is her
is
real
real.
life,
Yeah.
because in both ones, like in the one where she's the guy puts on a VR headset to be the woman, and in her real life she puts on a headset to be the guy, but they take place in different time period. It's crazy, dude. And it's like you get to a point watching it that you're not even sure anymore which one's the real one, because obviously the people in both of them are like, you're using that VR headset too much, you're gonna get lost in it, and like,
That's hilarious.
oh my god, it's so strange, man. It's so
What's it called?
It's called Electric Dreams. It's based on Philip K. Dick and his the writings of him,
Yeah.
which is what Blade Runner is based off of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay.
Which I saw the new one, by the way. It's awesome. If you haven't seen it,
I haven't seen it. No.
dude, it's dope. Really good. But yeah, I don't know, it's wild, man. But all the VR things like that take place in the future is literally like somebody just putting like a neural net on their head, or just like putting a thing on their temple, and they're not putting a headset on. They're not like holding things. They literally like boop, and they lay down, and they're just in. They're in.
Well, it's kind of like, you've seen Avatar.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, where it's like at some point it's like, well, which one's really real? If I can just live in the other one, is that even fake anyway? It's like a really strange concept. But.
Yeah, I don't know. So I thought of something that is kind of related to VR that we can talk about for a minute. Seeing as how you and I are both, last time I checked, Nintendo Switch owners.
Yes.
There was an announcement recently of a new. Everybody's going all these crazy directions with technology. Nintendo says, "Hey, let's make some shit out of cardboard." Have you seen that?
No, I have not.
Nintendo Labo.
No, I haven't seen that. What is
Okay.
it?
This isn't live. What I want you to do, go on YouTube, watch the Nintendo Labo, Labo announcement. Please. Could you know what, can you do this too? Can you do a screen share so we can watch it together? At the bottom of your thing it says screen share. So do that so we can both watch it.
Is it the first look at Nintendo Labo?
Yes.
Is that the,
Yep.
let me pull that up and then share. I have like a million windows open, so I'm trying to find the right one. Give me a
Sure.
sec.
At the bottom of your Zoom window, there's a big green button that says share screen.
Yeah, but there's like, I have so many Chrome windows and everything open, I can't find the right one. Here it is.
Oh,
Okay.
do you have it open in the browser?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you could even do that. Okay, cool.
Do you see?
I do.
you
I see it,
this?
and we're good. Yep. This isn't going to record properly, and I probably shouldn't even anyway. But
All
I'll
right,
just get
well,
the. I don't know, what does this look like on. Oh yeah, no, this is fine. Okay. So I can't hear it obviously, but
Oh, I didn't
that's
think of
okay.
that.
I've seen it before, so I know what it is.
Yeah, there's not much to hear anyway, just like music.
Yeah. So I'll narrate a little bit. There's a piece of cardboard that looks like it was maybe laser cut, and somebody's
Yeah.
folding up like a puzzle, what kind of looks like a puzzle kind of
What
thing, and they're
the-
building a structure, and it's like a piano. It says Nintendo Labo on it, and they're taking their Joy-Cons off and sticking the Nintendo Switch unit into it. So now it's a little mini keyboard with the Switch in
What?
it, and you slide your Joy-Cons into the sides, and now what you're thinking right now is, huh? Right? You're thinking, what is this?
No, I like get it. It's like, right?
No, you don't. You
It's
think you
basic-
get it, but you don't get it yet. Because watch.
It's basically those things become controllers, right?
Yes, but there's a lot more going on inside those boxes than there appears to be. Because there's all kinds of like VR sensors, not VR, IR sensors, like IR reflective surfaces on the cardboard and shit. And you have like all these weird elastic, like rope pulley, weird things happening. It's using the accelerometers, but also like using the IR sensor that's in one of the Joy-Cons
Okay.
to track.
That really.
The robot one looks bananas, dude. You have like attached these things to your feet, and I'm shocked you haven't seen this, because the whole crazy thing about this is like everyone's doing crazy tech stuff, and Nintendo's like, we're going cardboard.
What's cheap is all hell. Right?
And the first comment on Reddit, I think, when this thing got announced was like, now I can officially say that I never ever can predict what Nintendo's gonna do next. I can never
yeah,
predict
this is
it.
nutty. What the hell?
Yeah, dude. and then it just goes into customization with colors and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it's bananas, dude. I can't. And these kits are apparently not cheap, but they do come with games. So it's like you buy a kit that's like the cardboard unit and all the ways to build, the way to build it and the game that you play with it. And I think they're pretty standard retail game prices. I think maybe
Yeah.
$50 because I don't
Yeah.
think they're like fully fleshed out like AAA titles. I think it's
Yeah.
going to be
But
kind
you're
of,
also getting a physical thing with it.
right.
So.
But my question is like, are they going to release this to third-party developers? You know what I mean? Like, will third-party people be able to? I mean, I don't see why not, right?
I mean,
Could they
which part of
Could
it?
they? Yeah. Like, could they copyright the idea of making a cardboard thing that you can put the Nintendo Switch stuff into
I
and use it as a separate? I don't know.
I doubt it.
I doubt it
I
too.
doubt
I hope not.
But this is kind of so I don't know. Did you ever did you follow the Google Cardboard thing when it was literally cardboard?
No, I did not.
It was like so Google Cardboard was basically similar sort of idea, but basically the idea was that you would like print like a sheet of paper and like put it on top of a piece of cardboard and like cut
Oh.
it out.
Can I
and
just
then fold
pause
it
real
up.
quick? I just need
Yeah.
to pause you real quick because I literally just got a notification. Oh, I literally just got a notification from somebody commenting on my Instagram saying this podcast is awesome. I don't know if they're a real person or not, but it's Joe H6340, but they have 0.0 followers. So maybe they just made their account or something. If you're a real person, thanks. Awesome. Glad you appreciate it. I saw the notification on my computer screen, so I just wanted to shout.
Yeah,
If he's a real person, you just got the first legit shout out. So sorry. So the the Google Cardboard thing.
Yes. So it was essentially that you would basically cut the shape out of a piece of cardboard. You like print it out, and I think you just layer the paper over a piece of cardboard and like
Okay.
cut it out yourself, and then you'd fold it up to make a thing that you slide your phone in and put on your head.
Right. Okay.
So it's like the same sort of idea, but so that basically, I don't know how like obviously some of those are ridiculously complex. You probably need some like high quality cardboard for them, but like
yeah.
some of the smaller ones you could probably print out and like
Yeah.
take the last Amazon box you used and like cut it out of it and shove
Sure.
your control, right? Like so.
I would think so.
And
Yeah.
then, and it seems like a lot of them are like string and stuff like that too. And it's like my first like sure they could build. They always did those like plastic controllers for all sorts of remote things. And
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Like they could have just done the same thing, but I suspect this isn't just to make it cheaper, but also to make it more a DIY sort of thing and be able to do it yourself.
Yeah, because it
But
almost feels
maybe-
sort of Lego-y kind of, and
yeah,
but the question is like cardboard doesn't hold up for shit. So what happens when the thing I bought for $50 suddenly, or I spill a drink on it and there's no,
Right,
there's no
right.
coming back from that. You know what I mean?
Right,
So
so
I
they could-
wonder,
yeah.
I wonder
I
what
mean, they
the
could
ins and
be
outs are going
like
to be.
better, heavier duty cardboard or something like that. But like, if they're charging you $50 for the whole thing, like you have to buy the game again to be able to get another one. That's kind of silly. But
I doubt that'll be the case. I'm sure you can get standalone stuff for it, but how much is that going to be? Is it going to be
Mine-
$10 for a piece of laser cut cardboard?
Yeah.
It's not going to be cheaper than that, and it's not going to
Right,
be that cheap.
right.
So
yeah,
I don't
and
know.
at that
I guess
point,
it
like, why
remains to
not
be
you just make
seen.
it out of plastic, right? But I mean,
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
so
Yeah. I don't know.
yeah, I think what's interesting also is that like you're saying, like, can they really copyright this? Because from what I remember, the Joy-Cons are literally just Bluetooth, and you could just connect them to like your computer or whatever.
Yeah.
So like, let's stop some other random third party to make this for PC or something and do their own standalone thing and have their own printouts and stuff. But who knows?
Yeah. We shall see. I don't think there's a release date on it yet.
Yeah.
I don't think, but
Well, this video says available April 20th, 2018, but who knows what that really.
oh yeah, maybe that is the case. Okay. I didn't remember seeing a date. Have
Oh,
you
also that's 420. That's kind of. I hope that wasn't
what's
intentional.
is 420 a significant date for some reason? I'm not.
No.
No.
No, I'm just commenting on the fact that that's 2 months from now.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. This is a family-friendly podcast.
Yeah.
No, it's
well, I
not.
don't know. What are you talking about?
It's not at all.
There was something that tipped me off in the beginning, and I don't remember what you said, but there was something that you said that I was like, I knew where this was going. Oh, also, there was the whole comment about Lone Echo and being the sex robot for the.
Oh, right. Yeah,
And
yeah,
so, like, I guess you kind of threw it out there.
yeah. Have you played the new Mario game?
Only a little bit.
haven't
My
played
Switch
it.
has basically become my like when I'm traveling device and not much
Okay.
else. But
The only game I've been playing on there lately is Stardew Valley.
oh really? I didn't
Yeah, I
know that
love it.
I didn't know that was released for it. But,
Yeah, man.
yeah.
I got it like the day it came out, I think.
I've
And
heard a lot of good things about it, but
I knew nothing about Stardew Valley,
yeah,
and as soon as the people like, "Oh my God, Stardew Valley comes out today," and Reddit went bananas
yeah,
for it, and I was
yeah,
like, "The game's $25. I guess I'll just get it." And
yeah.
I'm like, I think I'm like almost 40 hours into it.
It's one of those games where it's like one of my friends. There's one of my friends that like tried to get me to play this other game a while ago that was $20. I was like, this looks like really stupid. I don't see the point. I'm never gonna play. I bought it and I like at this point. This is like a year ago, but like
Hmm.
I very quickly put 800 hours into it. I went like nutty on this game, and so he told me
God
about
damn.
Stardew Valley. He told me about Stardew Valley, and I'm like, it might be another one of those, but I'm gonna hold off on it because I don't think
I don't think you could put 800 hours in. I mean, if you played multiple saves, you know.
Yeah,
But I mean, I'm on spring. The way it works is you have a year is 4 seasons, and each season is 28 days. And
yeah,
each day, I think in real time, is like 20 minutes or something like that.
yeah.
Maybe something like that. So I don't know. I'm not going to bother trying to do the math in my head on that. But I'm a year. Yeah. So I'm in spring. Maybe almost a quarter way through year 2, but I have like 40, almost 40 hours in the game.
Mhm.
But there's all these crazy side plots to the game, and
Yeah, that's
the
what I
amount of
hear.
collectibles is
The
ridiculous.
thing is that collectibles always get me because I spend all the time trying to get everything. And
Yeah. Well, some of the collectibles you need to push the storyline forward, like
yeah,
the whole like one the main mission of the game is to uh um fix up the community center, which is run by these little like I don't know gnome things, but you have to collect certain items and give them to them. And once you complete certain chunks of the collection, they fix up different rooms of the community center until you do the whole thing. But that's just a small percentage of all the items there are to collect in the game. And there's
Mhm.
like a museum you can fill up with gems and shit like that. I don't need to get into the whole
I
thing,
get
but
stuck.
yeah, it's crazy. But then there's
It
all these
sounds like
weird
it
side things. Like you can have relationships in the game, and you can farm all kinds of different things, and have all kinds of different food production, and like foraging and fishing, and it's bananas. It's crazy. But I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And between that and Star Wars, are the only 2 games I play lately. Did you
Yeah,
hear the Nintendo Switch got somebody managed to put like fully functional Linux on it?
I did. I heard that. I haven't looked too deeply in it. But
I don't think there's much to know yet because they haven't revealed how they did it. But they showed a video demo where they have like a fully functioning browser and keyboard
yeah.
and internet access,
Did
obviously.
you see the kind of the opposite? There was a bunch of people that managed to get Breath of the Wild running the Wii U version running on a PC emulator, and so they can run it in 4K 3D. And it's like
No,
it's kind of nutty. I'm like,
that's cool.
at this point, like I might start over and start playing it that way instead. But that was really
Wait, in 4K 3D, you mean VR?
well.
Kind of?
3D and 3D in that like any way that you could kind of the way that I was doing 3D vision stuff before, but basically like you can take the game when you have the rendering pipeline, you can like basically re-render the game from a split 2 different eyes. You can like render the left eye, render the right eye, and then you can like it looks through.
Oh, okay. So you could potentially play it on a VR headset if you wanted to.
It's a little bit different, but yeah, kind of.
No, okay. I don't know.
It's more like it's more like watching a 3D movie than it is a VR headset.
But what hardware do you need to even experience that? I guess that's my question.
Either like a 3D TV or
Oh,
like
okay.
the NVIDIA 3D Vision stuff. You can do it in a VR headset, but it ends up being like you're looking at a 3D movie screen in space.
Okay.
Which is like a little weird, but I've done it. There's also like I've watched like some like 3D movies and stuff on it, and it's like this weird phenomenon where it's like you're in a headset in a fake world watching a TV of a fake. It's like
Yeah, that's super
Inception.
weird to
It's
me.
like
Yeah,
weird
I would
to-
try it, but I mean,
Yeah.
it would be great for me because I don't have like a space to go in my house like
Yeah.
to go watch a movie if I want to. Really, it's
Sure.
so like
Yeah.
it's always like I have to be quiet and stuff.
Yeah.
So that would be useful for me for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't have that hardware either.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Generally, I'd say like there's definitely there's definitely some good stuff in the VR space, but it's like,
Hmm.
would I recommend throwing down $500 to go experience some of these things when all of the games cost a bunch of money? Like, probably not if you like have a bunch of money sitting
Yeah,
around
it
to like
depends. Yeah,
toy around.
how much
I would,
expendable income do you have? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's definitely like it's expensive. I don't. It's hard to say if it's really worth it. I have
Mhm.
like disposable income to like throw at it, and like I got a bunch of stuff out of it, and like I think it was worth it, but it's definitely a personal sort of thing.
So
But
the moral of the story is, you were skeptical. You decided to pull the trigger, and you were pleasantly surprised with
I was
the state of
pleasantly
it.
surprised, but I'm still skeptical where it's gonna go. So it's like it
Sure.
made me a little bit more of a believer, but I'm still on the like
That's fair.
I don't know. It
Okay.
definitely like what Lone Echo convinced me is that like if games take this to be the thing and they design themselves around it, it's
Mhm.
really good. If you don't design the game for it, it's clunky and a little weird, and like certain types of games just aren't going to work. Like I was playing a bunch of like first person shooter type stuff, and that's like it's real. I don't know how to describe this, but I think it has to do with like the way that they do rendering of like eyes and the way that like we focus on we have like eye dominance and stuff that I don't think
Hmm.
VR accounts for very well. But like trying to look down at
Okay.
a gun and something is like
Kind of
very
weird.
it's like it's definitely weird, somewhat difficult. You can get better at it, but it's like a very strange experience.
Yeah.
And maybe someone solves
Hmm.
that someday, but it's just like I think VR games are going to be kind of like mobile, where it's like an offshoot and like a different style of game, and it'll attract a different type of person.
Yeah, I
And
think that was our speculation when we first
yeah,
talked about it, was that it's not going to replace regular video games maybe ever. It'll
yeah,
just be a
yeah,
different thing that people do, as
yeah.
like
And I think like
basketball as opposed to football, it's like
yeah, it's kind of like I could see it taking space of some games, kind of like Minecraft, where it's like semi-social, semi-multiplayer
sure.
world experience games that aren't too like don't require fine control and like really explicit like hardcore shooting and stuff like that.
Sure.
I think there's definitely like it's somewhere between like the family game genre, but it's also like the social aspect has to be multiplayer, like has
Right.
to be over the internet because like
Well, it's
socially,
definitely gonna. Well, the other thing too is, I mean, the whole idea of creating some sort of like horror experience. Um, that's gonna be
so,
great for that too.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely games that I'm like, I don't know that I feel comfortable playing that. The one game that kind of drove me into this was a game called Subnautica, which
Mm-hmm.
is the basic premise is that you like crash land. You're on like a ship going through space. I don't want to like ruin too much because it's a very story driven game and like
Okay.
a very experiential game. But basically, like you were going through space on some sort of large spaceship, you fall off, you crash, and like the spaceship crashes, you fall off, and you're like basically like you're alone, trying to survive, but you're on a just giant ocean world. And so like
That's
the whole
cool.
game is like
Oh,
diving.
Subnautica is just it's
Yeah,
a was it is you can get that on regular consoles too, can't you?
yeah, yeah.
I think you
I
can,
I think so. I think so.
because
I think there's some
it's
Xbox
kind of
versions
got
that
like a No Man's Sky kind of feel to it, right?
yeah, it's a
Yeah, I think I
small.
have that.
It's really good. I like definitely recommend it. It's
Okay.
but it's kind of like it's a story based game where basically you crash and you're trying to get back off the planet and like figure out what's going on and like who else survived and that sort of stuff. Um, but it's because it's a diving game. There's a lot of like you have oxygen and like hunger and water that you have to keep replenishing,
Oh,
and so like you can like go into a cave and get stuck, and then it's like it's dark in places, so like things can jump out at you. So that was the game that kind of drew me into it because it's like okay, if I could be more immersed in this, it'd be even cooler. And like because the controls are a little weird, it's hard to recommend. It's like I'd say if you enjoy the game, like it's worth playing in VR, but it's not worth playing.
I
Getting the
wish I wish I had played this game already, because just yesterday I did a podcast with my cousin, and I started doing like themes for them.
yeah,
And the theme for yesterday was like underground stuff and like caves
yeah,
kind of things. And a big part of our conversation was how fucking ridiculous and stupid it is to go scuba diving in an underwater cave.
yeah,
And that playing that game would have
yeah.
been a good
Yeah.
analog, to kind of call upon.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, one of the things that I noticed was there's a lot of like I didn't realize how disorienting it would be to
Yeah.
like go into a cave underwater. Like normally in games, I go into a cave and it's totally fine, but doing it in like 3D and like the way that this game lays them out, it's like really fucking hard and it's really easy to get lost.
Wow,
And
that's
so like
wild,
yeah,
man.
and so I was like started following the Reddit for it and everything, and I was like, some guy posted this picture of like he's like, oh, this belongs in the game, and it was literally like there was like a sign, like it was in real life. There was
Yeah.
like a sign by an underwater cave that was like,
Uh-huh.
"Don't go in, you will get lost. People
And you
do
will die. Yeah, yeah. I've
It's
seen that. Yep.
actually really-
That's funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, like that was a game that's like it's kind of horror, and like the VR experience like definitely makes it worse. And there have been some like horror-ish sorts of games that I'm like, I don't know that I could handle this, honestly.
Yeah.
Like that seems a little much, but
Yeah, I mean, I guess the whole thing, I kind of have to maybe retract a little bit of what I said. Like, if you're into horror, then it'll be good for that. Somebody like
Yeah.
me who I'm not into horror, and even jump scares for some reason
Yeah,
don't really
no.
get me.
same.
And I don't like. For me, I would be more fascinated by the idea of some sort of paranormal crazy shit happening to me
Yeah.
than it giving me like like anxiety or whatever.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be if you have to already be into horror to probably be able to appreciate the potential of horror in VR, because the only VR game I played was this game where it was on the PlayStation VR, and what you do is you're just on like a roller coaster track going very slowly for most of it, and you have guns. You like dual wield guns, and you just shoot at things like monsters that pop up and shit like that, and they can attack you and stuff. And I just thought it was a fun game. Like, it didn't. There's like all
Yeah.
kinds of jump things and blah
Yeah.
blah blah. And it's just for
Yeah.
me, it was just like, okay, I have to react quickly to shooting the thing. It wasn't like, oh god, like there's a monster,
Yeah,
you know.
no, same, yeah. But there's also like I don't know. I think VR is really good for like the experiential game sort of thing. Like
Sure.
there's definitely like shooters are a little tricky.
Yeah.
Doing like if you're trying to do things like an RTS game or whatever, like controlling a bunch of different units is definitely easier with a mouse and keyboard. Like
Sure.
flight sims, I don't know, maybe you could do it, but like it seems like the type like story-based games that really want you to like feel like you're inside the game. I think that are like a good fit for this, and I think that's why Lone Echo works really well, is because it's like you're supposed to feel like the actual robot on the
Right,
ship.
right. Yeah, because there's like those Telltale games, those Telltale series of all those games that are out right now, where it's not necessarily like a game, you're just kind of making decisions.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that thing would be more my speed, because that's kind of where it would probably get me, because I'm the kind of person where I can get engrossed in a story, like like a book,
Yeah.
or even
I
so
think-
visually I get into it very well. So if you're blocking out the rest of my senses, and I can literally look around and shit, that would be right up my alley.
I think you would like Subnautica a lot. I'm surprised that you haven't played it more. If you,
I just don't, I'm not. The only
Yeah.
reason I even have been playing Star Wars so much is because I reconnected with my cousin through the podcast and stuff, and it's a lot of fun for us to kind of get together
Yeah.
and get on there and play together. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll, if I have some free time, I'll definitely check it out for sure.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I think we about
Cool.
I think we hit a lot of different topics there. This is
yeah.
great.
Yeah,
This is great,
yeah.
man. I gotta have you on again.
Yeah, no,
For sure.
definitely. Hit me up with another one all around these sorts of topics. I'm definitely down.
Yeah, sure, man. Sure. Yeah, because me and Joey just kind of were talking about whatever for a while, but then we started to get on some topics. We got some feedback from people that were a little too all over the place with our conversation,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
unless you're just using it as background noise, I guess it's kind of hard to be engaged with. So if
Sure.
we kind of have a topic that ahead of time, like we're talking about stuff that's underground, or I haven't released that one yet, but the one before that was I don't remember, something else, but kind of having some kind of idea what you're getting into before allows you to be a little more engaged. And I've gotten
Yeah, have,
feedback
like, a
from some
focal point
people.
to it.
Yeah, and I've gotten feedback from some people that while they're listening to it, more than one person has said to me that they start talking because they think, and I don't know if it's because they know us really well and they have had conversations with us, but more than one person has said to me that they literally are about to like engage in the conversation, then they realize that they can't,
That's kind of
which is
hilarious.
crazy, because like what more could I ask for
Yeah,
of
right.
somebody listening
You
to
have
it,
really engaged audience apparently.
Dude, well, yeah. But like I said, those are people who know both of us, so that's why I'm really like, I really want to get feedback from people who who I don't know personally.
Yeah.
What's really cool though is I got there are people right now listening in London, England, and Stockholm, Sweden, which is really cool because it was really funny because one night I wake up to like a record number of downloads overnight. And I was like, holy shit, that's crazy. And then I looked at where they are, and like 10 of them were out of London, and 7 of them were out of Stockholm, Sweden. And I was like, what the fuck? What? Like, what? What? That's insane. And then that's during that same day, I got a notification from Pippa, my hosting company, and they were like, oh, just so you know, you were approved for Spotify. And a couple minutes later, I was like, oh, I'm so dumb. Like, I knew that I was under review with Spotify, and Spotify was founded in Stockholm, Sweden.
Yeah.
And they also have a headquarters in London. And so it was just a bunch of people there listening to it. But since I got approved for Spotify, since that, I've gotten more downloads in both places with episodes I've put out. So shout out to whoever's out there, hit me up. I want your feedback. Obviously, there's people in Hollywood right now. There's somebody. It just shows me the city. I assume it's one person that's continually downloading it. It'd be a crazy coincidence otherwise. But yeah, there's somebody in Ashburn, Virginia, that's following it. Somebody just started following it up in Washington. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Something with a D. My apologies, Washington person. But like all over the place, so people in Florida following it all over, dude. It's fucking cool. And I don't know how they're finding it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of know what platforms they're using, but I don't have any feedback from anybody. So hit me up. But yeah, man. So thanks for coming on. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This was
It's
great.
been fun.
Yeah. And thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. I usually